Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of Podstallions. I am Brian, and with me to my left, way over there, is Jason.
Hello, everyone.
And this episode is Jason's idea, so I will let him explain the concept and take notes.
Well, thank you for that lovely intro, Brian.
You're
I
very
appreciate
welcome.
Well, here's the thing. I was thinking about some of the notes we get and the very kind suggestions and observations, and the questions we get are sort of in depth, and I love it because it's that old story of you're at the party, you're at the cocktail party or something, and somebody suddenly asks you a question like, what posters did you have on your bedroom wall when you were in high school?
Oh my God, that's a really good question.
And you go and you're like, oh my God, I know this. I have an answer, and I've been waiting all these years for someone to ask me that question. Thank you, stranger, for asking me that question. And then you can just go and riff on it. And that's what I feel like some of the questions are that we get on the page once we post stuff. So I thought maybe it would be fun. This isn't like deep dark confessions, who changed you to a radiator when you were a child.
We're not doing that?
We're not doing that this week. No, that'll be
okay.
Maybe in a month or two. We'll
All
see
right,
how this
you'll
one
have
goes.
to go first then.
Yeah. Oh boy, that'll be a long show. It'll be a mini-series. But I thought what we do is just sort of ask each other some questions
Sure.
that are not like boxers or briefs or anything like that. Just like that have
For the record, I use boxer briefs, so I play both sides of the political spectrum there. Yeah.
For the record.
Yeah.
When I wear them, I wear boxers. If I wear them, I wear boxers. No, I'm kidding. I always wear boxers. But the other thing was this thing with Mary Lou Henner on the Gottfried podcast. But I remembered this about her a few years back, that she's got this rare condition. Well, it's a condition, but it's a
perfect
gift,
memory,
really.
right?
Yeah, it's called Highly Superior Autobiographical Memory, HSAM. And they were asking her questions like, March 3rd, 1973. And she was going right to the day, what the day was, the day of the week it was. She had a pretty good idea of what she was doing that day. I mean, it was extraordinary, the memory.
Just as an aside, did you have a Marlo Henner crush as a kid?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
I still have a Mary Lou Henner crush.
My wife actually, she was on something not too long ago, and my wife was like, "You had a crush on her as a kid? She seems a bit mature." And I'm like, "Look at her,
Well, and I was going to say, oddly enough, the condition she had freaked me out a little bit, because the first thing I thought was, what must it have been like to be in a relationship with her for any of these men? Because I pride myself on, I sort of have a photographic memory for words, and it's done wonders for me throughout my life. In other words, I can hear a song once, maybe twice, and the lyrics, once, or if I've taken a look at the lyrics, they're in my head, they're locked in. That's it. I know the track listing. I know it all happens very quickly. Lines from movies, where I was when I saw what movie, what theater, who I was with, what I had to eat, all that. But in friendships or relationships or things like that, what's weird about that is, it's tricky because you go, no, that's not what she said. What we said was whatever. But there's this trick that our memories sort of play on us too. And if you don't have a witness, if you don't have somebody with you that can verify the fact that you're sort of throwing out, then you really get down the rabbit hole of like, well, wait, did that happen? Like my friend Paul, the movie Babe came up, or he had it on his shelf or something. And I said, oh, we saw that together. And he said, what are you talking? What? I said, yeah, 1995. It was like it was at the Dollar Theater. We went up to Sherman Oaks. Yeah, it was up in the Galleria. We went there. Remember, we got a thing of popcorn. We shared it, and you were being weird about sharing a soda. And I'm like, no, we're not going to share a soda. Remember, we sat right behind the woman who does the voice of Lisa Simpson. Remember? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I never saw that in the theater. I only saw it on DVD. I said, no, and I know for sure that we did, but he has no recall. And so then you start to go, well, wait a minute, did this happen? And you and I, so much of what we talk about is made up of memory. It makes up, who we are. And what she was saying on the show was, everybody's got a capacity for some of this stuff, but it has to do with like the framework of it. Like when she used the term, and I can't remember, but it was like, what is your framing device? She said for Phil Rosenthal, Everybody Loves Raymond, his is food. So a food item can be mentioned, or he can think of something, and he goes right back to 1985 and so-and-so's kitchen or whatever. For me, it might be songs, pop music, or songs or movies.
Yeah.
Where a title can come up. I know exactly when it came out. I know the time of year it came out. I know where I was. That kind of weird. And I think
I kind of get a little bit of that because occasionally my wife will go, I've never seen this. And I go, yeah, we saw it at Dan's house. You were drinking red wine and you got a headache. And she'll just go like, all right, I believe you, but I don't remember this film. And, that's a memory from like 1998, but it sticks in my brain, but I have absolutely no context as to how that works and why that works. I also am a person who can't find his keys every day. So I don't understand how I work at all.
Well, and that's true. It's like I'm not great with balancing a checkbook or whatever. But by God, you can ask me, who was the cinematographer on whatever movie from 1978 and how many theaters you play in.
That's really important to me.
And if I don't know it, then if I go to look it up to confirm it or whatever, and then it's locked in. Or things like jingles or commercials that you haven't heard in 35 years, and they go, oh, here's how it went. Now, not everybody has that. But I think, and the part of this is like a theory that I have, but I think there is a connecting tissue to people like us and people that listen to this and the people that dig this stuff between memory and detail and vivid, images and memory and things and connections like that, and the whole collecting thing, or the, for lack of a better word, the obsessive completist kind of thing, or wanting to have. There's a connecting tissue to it. Not everybody has it. I mean, certain relationships, women, they couldn't tell me the name of the song. They knew what track it was on the CD, but they could never tell me the name of the song that they liked or whatever. So not everybody has this sort of thing. But I think there's something very specific in people that dig genre stuff, or people that are, big geeks like us or whatever. I thought it might be fun if we each took a handful of questions. I don't know the questions that Brian has, and he doesn't know the questions that I have, but I thought it might be kind of fun to just sort of do some exploring, if you forgive the disgusting metaphor, of each other's bodies and memories.
I think that's disgusting.
And see what kind of cool stuff sort of comes out that maybe hadn't been thought of or hadn't been thought of in a long time.
Yeah, I was so intrigued by this concept, and I must admit to the audience that I was a little flummoxed by the idea of writing questions. So I'm definitely going to let Jason go first.
So basically, I'm the only one who did the assignment. That's what you're saying.
I half-assed it, and you go first. It's like group work,
Just like being in school with you, Hyler.
Oh yeah.
No different.
Most definitely. Different. Yeah. Oh.
All right.
You're looking at solid C+ guy. All right.
All right. So my first question would be, when do you think you knew that you had a love for genre stuff? Now, what I mean is, some people know at a very young age, like, oh, Sherlock Holmes is my thing. I'm going to love mystery books for the rest of my life, and read every kind of mystery novel there is. Some people it's sports. Some people it's whatever. When I say genre, I mean the whole sci-fi horror thing, that when did you kind of know that this was going to be your jam? That it was something that spoke to you?
That's a really good question, and that way I can take a minute here. It did very early age. I would have to say probably like 6 or 7 years old, because anything science fiction or superhero related, I was really, really into, and I knew like my next door, your world is your neighborhood, right? And
Right.
my next door neighbor and best friend by geography, Neil, was very much into hockey. He was, the typical good Canadian, and I had no interest in Mike Palmateer or any of that stuff, or Lanny McDonald or Daryl Sittler. Like, I knew their names because, osmosis, but I can honestly remember like really liking $6 Million Man and reruns of Star Trek and Space 1999 and Planet of the Apes. Like, those were my jam very early on. That is the shows that entertained me. And I would have to say it was pretty early.
And so then once that you sort of, when you saw a commercial for something, or you saw a toy in the toy aisle or something that was of that ilk, or a comic or something, you gravitated toward it. You thought, I've tasted these things. This thing smells similar. I'm gonna give this a try.
This is the best example I can give of myself is you ever heard of FOMO, which is like fear of missing out, which is a Facebook thing.
No.
I grew up having a case of FOMO. I always felt like I missed the party.
Okay.
Case in point, I'll just give you several points. First of all, like, Planet of the Apes was kind of being closed out when I was 5 years old, and I was still into it, and I didn't quite understand why. Star Trek was a canceled show. My neighbors handed me a big stack of trading cards from the 60s. I remember that, and looking through them going like, when did this monster thing happen? And I always felt like I had just missed the party. G.I. Joe and Big Jim were canceled when I was 5 years old or 6 years old.
Right.
All these things felt like I was really intrigued with what happened prior. At a very early age, I was predilected with it. Remember they used to do treasury editions of Golden Age comics?
Sure.
I can honestly remember like going, why does the Flash have a helmet? And like, I was always very early on, they caught my curiosity, so to speak. And
so you were aware, you'd see that stuff in a treasury, and you were aware enough to know that those things were published prior to your existence.
Very, very basic understanding, just because like the artwork seemed very old, but I always had questions. I was always intrigued. So I would say like very, very early on, I knew, well, I don't think I was extremely self-aware of myself, but I knew that's where my interest lay. And when you're like 7 years old, your parents aren't exactly trying to hone or shape you to any one thing. And it didn't hurt that my dad was a bit of a TV junkie. Like, he'd watch anything on TV. So, I would say very, very young age.
All right. See, that wasn't so hard. That's
No.
Question number one.
Okay.
There you go. All right.
Here's my question number one. When did you know that you got really bent about the details? And I'll give you my example. I got into nearly a physical fight with a kid in the 4th grade because this book said there was a picture of Buck Rogers in a sci-fi book, and that was a misprint because that wasn't Buster Crabbe. I was like, that isn't Buck Rogers. And me and that kid... I think we got sent to the office, and my sister's like, what are you doing about a book? What happened? And I knew that that shit mattered to me, and it didn't matter to anyone else. So when did that happen?
All right, there's two ways to answer. The first thing that came into my head when you asked the question was, when did you notice that if something didn't line up or add up?
We got bent about the details of this stuff when it stressed you out.
It was. Well, I could think the first thing I could think of is seeing commercials for On Her Majesty's Secret Service running on ABC. And not recognizing who the hell James Bond was.
Oh wow!
Because at that point, Roger Moore was my Bond. I mean, this must have been '78 or so, maybe. And I knew who Sean Connery was. Like I'd put the pieces together because of ABC Sunday Night Movie and because of my brothers and a record, The Incredible World of 007 album that had to tie it into the TV special. Somebody had that, and it got handed down to me, and so I'd always study the photos in the back of it and stuff. But I didn't know who Lazenby was. So, I mean, my first thought was, when did the wiring go? Wait a second, what is that? That doesn't add up. But if you're saying when another kid or someone else sort of threw something out there, and as a kid, you wanted to go, that's not what it's called.
Yeah.
Or
When did you correct another kid?
Well, first, it's so cliche at this point. It should be written into a book. Is the mix-up of Star Trek and Star Wars, when that was a constant thing. When an aunt or a grand or somebody would
Dr.
go like,
Spock.
That's Dr. Spock from Star Wars, or they would say Han Solo, Hans.
Han Solo, yes, the German.
Would say Han Solo, and I'd be like, his name is Han. It's actually not, stuff like that. I would, but you got to remember, I was the kid that if kids on the playground were going on about Kiss being told badass, I'd be going, I prefer Wings, actually. Paul McCartney and Wings.
Oh.
I was defending Wings in 1978 over Kiss. But usually, even back then, it was always the Beatles. It was, if anybody ever, said some band or someone did something, I'd say, well, the Beatles did it first, or like not as good as the Beatles did it, or like the Beatles are bigger, or they'd sort of shit on them. I would immediately sort of not attack, but I would be like, well, you don't know what you're talking about, obviously. And as a kid, it's like, I don't know why I had all that information, but again, I think some of it was passed down from my older brothers and books that they had. Most of this was post 1980. After John had been killed, that I read more of the books and I dissected more of the output, and that's to this day. I have called for the check on dates if I'm with someone and she says, well, I don't think they're very good. I'd be like, really? Would you excuse me for a moment? And I head out the back to the restroom and then just grab a taxi and get out of there. Basically.
That's motivation, sir. That's dedication.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's dedication. That's not going to change, yeah. But it would have to be something like, I would think it was something like a kid getting a detail of a character wrong. Or, and as a kid, I think we both do, we still to this day, it's like that, you hear the conversation in the room, and you don't want to be the know-it-all, but you also want to kind of go, yeah, I think you're thinking of a different movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's worked to my detriment, where you correct somebody, and you're like, I know how I sound.
Yeah.
I know how I sound right now, and I know who I am, but I'm being true to myself, and I have to correct you.
Being true to yourself, but I've got to the point where I pick and choose. But what I tell myself is, if I don't step in, this conversation is going to keep going, and it's going to go way, way further than it should in the wrong. This person is building a thesis. And they're starting it wrong, so I feel like I have to put my finger. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know you're not talking to me directly. But you just know. You're thinking of Sean Connery, right? That's the thing that you're. Okay, I don't want to be a. Go ahead. Finish. Go ahead.
And I think it reminds me a lot of the Scrooged when he's at his brother's Christmas party and his friends can't think of the SS Minnow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He's like, come on, you know this. Oh, come on. Yeah. Yes, I think that's what it is. All right, I got another one. Here's another one.
All right.
But you may have kind of answered this a little bit in your previous question, which was, did you have friends / anyone that you found was interested in the same stuff? Like, when did you have a friend Or when did you sort of have a little gang or whatever it was that suddenly you're like, they're speaking my language? And not just the stuff that's out there that everybody was into. Like, everybody saw Star Wars and everybody went to see Bond. But
actually, I've had a very lucky life. I'd say in the 5th and 6th grade, I had a buddy named Freddie, and he was a huge influence on me because he actually turned me on to like late night horror movies and Bruce Lee movies. And I just, I feel really horrible because I couldn't find him for years, because he moved schools, and then he went to a different high school. But another friend of mine reached out about 10 years ago and said, have you found Freddie? And I was like, no. And unfortunately, he passed away. He only lived in the next town over, which really pissed me off. After he was a huge influence on all of that stuff. And then in high school, I ran with a group of guys who, it was a really cool situation. Like, there's this whole stereotypical thing of, the jocks versus the losers. We were like there was a lot of people in the middle in high school, that weren't necessarily like the super popular, but we weren't also getting beat up. And, we just kind of started our own thing, and I had some really close friends. I'm still friends with a bunch of them, and we just did our own thing. Like, one of my closest friends in high school collected Transformers, and he also was dating some beautiful women, and we all just kind of we had our own little circle. So I was kind of blessed with that in high school. I wasn't a loner in any way. I was accepted exactly for who I was, and I'm really grateful for that whole situation, actually.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. No, that I never. I mean, I wasn't running around showing everyone the new, big gyms I got in the mail. But my friends knew I had. Like, I had a girlfriend in high school, and that was just like part of me. Like, I didn't hide that I had a bunch of action figures in my room. That was never a problem, actually.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I think I put an embargo. I sort of like clamped down on all of it for as far as publicly went for a long time. There was a time that it just sort of went away.
Yeah.
All through high school, and
Actually, that would follow to my question.
Okay, all right.
What is your most embarrassing high school getting caught with nerd stuff story?
Oh man.
Because I got one.
High school, huh?
Yeah.
High school.
High school where this shit matters. Because college, who gives a crap?
Yeah. I don't know if I have one because I had sort of put a lot of that stuff away throughout high school. Not that I wasn't interested, but you had a phase. Well, I'll say this. I remember still going to the mall. You're a parent. I mean, I'm sure you've had it at this point, or you will at some point, where you bring the kids to wherever, and one day the kid's going to go, hey, listen, I'm going to go over there and hang out with my friend for a bit. Can you just can I see you in a bit, or pull the
get
car
lost.
up?
Yeah.
I would do that sometimes. My mom would go to the mall, and I wanted to go to the mall with her so I could, of course, hit Chess King, get some ties.
Oh,
and Walden, but like Walden Books or Beat Alden had, Target Doctor Who paperbacks, and they carried Starlog and Fangoria and stuff like that.
This is your brown bag story.
And that would be the brown bag thing, where there was never a time where I'm bumped into a friend in the mall, and suddenly very casually the bag opened up and the magazine fell on the floor, and they went, "What's that?" That didn't happen. But I would sort of, if I were to bump into somebody, I would certainly just sort of keep it behind my bench, just ignore it or pretend that it's not there, or probably say I was getting it for a friend or something, because I think I don't know why, but I put that sort of on. You got to remember, see, I don't know if it's worse or better that I went to an all-male military academy for high school, so there were no girls there.
Well, I'm sure that made your production of Romeo and Juliet strange.
Hey, listen, very progressive. That's all I'm going to say. But there was a girls' school across the road, and we would have classes together sometimes, and of course the testosterone was off the charts and everything.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know if it was I don't know if it was because there was so much, guy energy and so much, like macho bullshit in the school with these kids and puberty and all. If I felt weird about talking about that stuff or not. I mean, like, I don't remember kids like saying, negative. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't remember kids saying, "I can't believe you watched." It was weird. Do you remember when Star Trek: The Next Generation premiered?
Yeah.
Was that like 87 or something?
87, 88, I think. Yeah.
I remember watching that when it aired and coming to school the next day or whatever it was, and avoiding in study hall, saying, "Hey, anybody catch the Star Trek: The Next Generation premiere?" But some other kid brought it up, and then the next kid went, "Oh yeah, I saw it. It was kind of, I forgot they were doing that. It was kind of cool." And then I go like, "Oh yeah, I saw it. I watched it." And it like opened the door to be able to sort of talk about it. And then with certain friends knew the stuff I was sort of into, but I didn't really broadcast it by any means. But I didn't really. I don't know if I have one of those stories. I know that because I think I lied a lot. I think if it ever came up, or I think I was probably the guy that was like, "Really? No, I'm not into." No, why did you say that?
Yeah.
Never say no.
I did that to a point where I was actually ashamed of myself at points.
Well, I did a thing once. I was over at my grandma's house one night, and the Peter Davison stories were airing at night on a Friday night. And I knew some kids in the neighborhood, and we had been hanging out. It was just on the cusp of like one kid might be 13, and she might have a cigarette or something, like just that, like, things are changing and everything. And I remember, being outside. It's dark. It's a Friday night. It's a very safe neighborhood. This is what we did on Friday night. And kind of looking at my watch thinking, I got to get back into my grandma's house because the new Doctor Who is going to be on Channel 2. And I think I started to go, well, I got to go. And then I think it was a girl said, well, where are you going? Well, why are you leaving? And I was like, the words, like, before I could stop myself, the words came out of my mouth and I went, yeah, well, Doctor Who's going to be on Channel 2. And so it's a new one. And so I want to go in and see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I might as well have said, the new Pier Paolo Pasolini film is playing at the Uptown, and I'm taking my limousine. She looked at me like, what? And then I just was like, yeah, it's a really cool British show. It's British, and it's only on Channel 2. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to go, like, they had no idea what it was. I was like, woo! I actually kind of looked cool there. And then went off to my grandma's house and kept the volume low so I could watch Doctor Who in the other room. But that's about as close as I got to that sort of thing, actually.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
I got busted. I got busted in the ninth grade with. I had bought a Superpowers figure, and left the comic in my gym bag. And in gym class, some other kids like, "What do you got this for? This is for like 7-year-olds." And it's like, oh shit, That's probably my most embarrassing high school moment. Ninth grade, Superpowers, Flash, comic book inside.
Yeah, which is, just that it's so cliche. It's such a cliche statement.
Yeah.
From a kid, what are you doing with this? This is for 10-year-olds, or why do you have this? This is for girls, or this is for whatever.
Yeah.
It's been in every movie ever made. Kids are still doing it, and I've never understood what the need was for. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. Again, back to the high school I went to, and these were a bunch of rich kids. It was very disciplined. The military, aspect. It was a college prep academy. It was very tough. It was very tough curriculum. And we had a rough class. My graduating class was the worst academic class in the 103-year history of the academy. That's how bad this class was. And we had a bunch of misfits. I knew a couple of my classmates were gay. They didn't say they were gay, but I knew they were gay.
Oh, yeah, me
one
too.
of my best friends was a year ahead of me. and he's one of the bravest people I think I've ever known, because not only is he Jewish, a Catholic military academy, he did his hair like Annie Lennox, short-haired, orange-haired Annie Lennox from the Eurythmics, and he was gay. He wasn't out, but I mean, he got harassed like you wouldn't believe. But what I mean is, like, we had this. I never felt with that class that there were the jocks and there were the whatever, but everybody was kind of cool to everyone.
Yeah.
And so that was always something I was grateful for. That there was status stuff, and there was the haves and the have-nots, and did you go on the retreat? And then you get a Jesus fish pan, and whatever. There was that stuff for sure. There was politics, but people were just sort of, if you were into something, you were kind of into it. And I probably should have been more open with the stuff that I was into at the time. But
it's all confidence now. Now when I think about it, it's all just confidence.
Yeah, it's a dicey time.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's one. I bet you have an answer for this. When as a kid or growing up or whatever, did you either notice or not notice, but when you started to sort of take extra care of your stuff? When did you suddenly go, like, I'm treating this stuff differently than the kids down the block are, my toys or my stuff? Like, I'm cataloging things, nothing is getting beat up, I'm not losing weapons or, whatever. Like, did you notice that as a kid, that you kept stuff really,
I noticed it when I found, like, I had put my Darth Vader collector case away for years. Like, I discovered my Darth Vader collector case when I was about, I'd say 25. And I had not seen it in a good 11 years. And when I opened it up, all the figures were in really nice shape, and I still had all my weapons. And I just realized, I was really, mindful of this stuff. And I think I've often commented that Star Wars is when I stopped being a kid and I started being a collector, and it's probably why I don't have the same happy memories devoted to it that I do, say, with Mego and Big Jim and G.I. Joe and that sort of stuff, because I played with that stuff. Whereas Star Wars, I started to kind of like curate and collect. And I would have to say around 1980 is when I really was like hardcore into, like, I've got Luke with his, the brown hair and all that stuff. That's definitely when I started collecting. But
as a kid, even you didn't, like, there was, I remember a few houses down, there was a kid that always had his stuff out in the sandbox, with land speeder and, figures, and, this is Tatooine, let's do this thing. And he'd say, go get your figures and bring them down, let's have a war or whatever. And I'd be like, no, I don't think so. I don't really want to.
No, I remember not wanting to be around those kind of kids. I had a really close friend who used to make his action figures fight by just smashing them together. And I remember, like, the energy alone was like, no, let's go to the creek or do something else. No, you're not touching my Batman doll. But yeah, so I was always a little I wouldn't say to the, like, I lost the gloves and boots and stuff on figures, but I started to take really good care of them once I got, like, past 7 years old, I'd say. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this occurred to me because this past Christmas I posted pictures on Facebook of, I still have the cardboard envelope and a couple of the cards, the photo cards and the Space Club card from the Early Bird kit, Star Wars Early Bird kit. So I have carried those with me. I cut the background up when I was 6 or 7 to have other figures to go with my Early Bird kit when they showed up, and so I didn't go, oh, this is a treasure, but I've carried that thing around with me now 42 years. That's Christmas of '77. That thing was under the tree, and then I started thinking about I've told you before about the ARC die-cast Baltan. I have the Ultraman.
Baltan,
which every time I played with it, I put it right back in the styrofoam. All the bits went in. I never lost a missile. And it went right back in the box. I still have it. Or my Indiana Jones 12-inch Kenner doll in the same box. Like, certain things that that I think of and think, why did I save that box? Is it because it had all the bits, or like all the new figures? Like I have everyone is like it came right out of the packaging. No paint chips. I played with them like mad as a little kid, but I never lost a weapon, and I wonder if there's a thing there where like you were taking care of things, or there were certain, you and I probably
I will tell you that I remember going to play at my friend's house, and we went under the stairs, as children did, and the Millennium Falcon box was there, or his Death Star box. I can't remember which one it was. And I remember like, oh my God, you still have the box for this? And I tried to get it from him. And he's like, no, I think we'll keep it. And it was all I could think about the entire day. Was like, he still has the box for his Millennium or Death Star. How do I get this in my home? I need to get this in my home. And it was a problem. I remember it being a problem that day. That's one of the things I begged, and I only begged a couple of times at Christmas, where I begged my mother to please get the Millennium Falcon for Christmas. And it was an expensive item, Did you not call her at work?
I called her at work about a 12-inch Han Solo that I found. I had called
Right, Ace Hardware or something, yeah.
Yeah, and she freaked out because she thought I was, a refrigerator fell on me or something. Yeah. But she got, and we went out to Children's Palace to get it, and she said, you are not getting this until Christmas. Well, it came in that big box, and then I remember keeping the box in the house for like a week or two, and she kept saying, that is going. Take that in the other room, it's going to be out of the boulevard for garbage. And I tried avoiding it, and then it finally had to go down to the boulevard.
Yeah.
And it sat out there for like 2 days, and it was torture driving past it when we would come back home, and the box was still outside. And I think to myself, I can still grab it. How can I grab it and hide it somewhere? But it was huge. It was enormous.
You just unlocked a terrible memory, and I don't know if I've said it on this thing before, where I'm probably 4. And my mother threw out the Bullet Man card, and she said, it's in the garbage. And I went and got it, and it was covered in, like, coffee grounds. And I, like, cleaned the card back off. Yeah, oh, my God. I remember I was picking through the trash bag, and it was hot. I remember it was like the garbage had been sitting there all day. I don't know why my mom let me do this, but, yeah, and it was like, damn it, woman.
I put it in the garbage, and you're going, what?
Yeah.
Like bolting out the door.
Holy crap! Yeah, and I will tell you this. Apparently, I come by it genetically, because when I was about 16, I was in my uncle's house, and they were having a party, and my uncles, like my nieces and nephew, or my cousins were, they're like 8 years younger than me, so it wasn't that exciting for me. And I was like in the spare room of the basement, and I opened up a box, and it was full of like dinky cars, like the Monkey Mobile and the Batmobile, all mint in box. And then like letters to Rowan and Martin that are autographed. And like I was going through this shit, and yeah, my uncle, my grandmother told me, oh yeah, he never let anyone play with his toys. And,
oh my God!
Yeah, and he had like the Marx Fred Flintstone on a dinosaur that wound up, and it was still in the box. And at the time, I was collecting toys, and I went to my uncle. Those are worth money. I can make you a fortune. And he was just kind of like, yeah, no, that's not happening. But I realized that, like, hey, you know what? My uncle's all right.
It's in the blood, my friend.
Yeah.
It's in the blood. I think you're up. I think you're
okay.
Probing.
Did you ever give it all up and try to grow up?
Oh my God, that is just about the most
depressing,
complex, loaded question. Well, okay. Again, there's so many ways to answer this. When I think about where I'm at in my life, and I think about it often, a lot of people to the right and left of me are married with kids, or divorced with kids, or going to get divorced with kids, or might get married for the second time, or whatever. And they have families, and they have the kids are now getting into junior high and whatever. I don't have that, and it was never a thing. And the women that I was with, it was never really a big thing for them either, and it's just stuff like that. Just saying for a mortality.
I don't mean it
thing.
like in that sense. I mean, did you ever
No, but
just
what I
try
mean
to
is,
give
what I'm
up
getting at
the
is-
lifestyle, so to speak?
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is the part of a lot of that, what comes with it is the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Everything I've sort of done out here, or that I've sort of done professionally in life, voiceover work, or writing and producing on things, or trying to create things, or starting a toy company or whatever. It all sort of, you could trace it all back from childhood. The things that I loved in childhood are comedy and silly voices and things like that. So it's all part of the same soup, kind of. And that's the thing. I think part of it is I still get high off of these things. Now the second half of the answer is, as far as consuming, as far as collecting, yeah, I have, and that's been heartbreaking and kind of sobering at the same time. I'm sort of going through it now with a lot of the bits and bobs that I sort of have left right now to sell. But when I really step back and think about the huge collections of things that I've had over the years, and how I sold them all, the Bond collection, the Indiana Jones stuff, the Rocketeer stuff, the Nightmare Before Christmas, I still long for things, but I always kind of thought, well, I'll get rid of this Corgi stuff now, and one day I'll be doing so well that I can get it all back. And part of me kind of wants to, and part of me is kind of like, it's okay. I had it. It was part of the thing. The buzz of the vibing off of this stuff, no, I don't think so. And I don't think I'm capable. I don't think I'm capable of, I remember once my brother called me. I was living in Toluca Lake years ago. And my brother, Jack, who's always been very professional, high school, college, law school, professional in Washington, D.C., and Chicago, and New York, and Switzerland, and, suit and tie, traveling everywhere. And he would call me from New York, and one morning he called me, and it was like 9 in the morning, and I'm sitting in my little apartment, and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm eating cereal, watching cartoons." And he goes, "Jason, how old are you?" I said, 32. He's like, "Really? You're really sitting watching cartoons and eating cereal?" I said, "Well, yeah. Is there a reason you're calling?"
Yeah.
No. But it was like, and I still, but the reason I bring the kids into it is I still have this luxury of, trying to enjoy that stuff or dipping into it anytime I want. I don't really have to negotiate or pick times, because I don't have those responsibilities. So if anything, that stuff is more of a comfort to me now than maybe it ever has. It's a blessing and a curse, because everything is connected, and it's very, very difficult. And this is going to make sense in a second. Very difficult because of where I am in life, and because of my age, I think, for me to, I can sit in my house sometimes, go to Amazon Prime and start flipping through it, and like, ooh, look at all these movies they have. Oh, those are all free, or that I can rent for $2. And one night I was doing it, and I was sitting with the remote and flipping right to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. I mean, I was doing this for 30 minutes, and I suddenly went, I've seen every one of these movies. I've seen all of them. From a 1971 British horror movie to, Tequila Sunrise to whatever. I've seen them all. I've seen everything that's on this list right now, and which is crazy. But now dipping into anything, it tends to conjure up everything. And so I was watching The Long Kiss Goodnight a couple weeks ago. I hadn't seen it since it came out. And people, it's one of those movies that's, I think, taken on a stature over the years, and people have said, people missed the boat the first time. It's really good. You should watch it again. And it was good, and I'm digging it. And 20 minutes in, and suddenly I go, oh, right. I remember who I was dating. I know where I was living. I know where she was living. I remember that her dad's girlfriend managed one of the guys that's in the movie. That's the guy right there. I remember going to that sushi restaurant on Sunset with them and talking about the movie. And I suddenly couldn't get myself out of the movie. And so this to me goes all the way back to the whole memory thing of like these things that we love. When I tell that story to my friends, or a friend, let's say, they look at me like, why couldn't you just? They don't get it because they don't have those kinds of triggers with those kinds of with pop culture that way.
Yeah.
And so it's a beautiful thing, but it's also a bit of a curse because everything is connected and everything sort of means something. So I think the answer is no. I don't think I have spiritually just tried to walk away, and I don't think I could. I think we're the coolest bastards out there. The shit that we're into and the shit that we know, I'd much rather have that than be a political animal or.
Oh yeah, yeah. I to be the simple answer to that for me is, in the early '90s in college, I sold all my toys to pay my debts and buy a car, and I thought I could be a normal person, So I threw myself into movie collecting because that seemed like a something that you could present to a girl and that wouldn't require further explanation. It would actually make you interesting, and I still collect movies to this day. But around the time I met my wife, I set up at a toy show to sell some of my stuff, and I think at that time I realized, hey, you know what? She likes me just for who I am. She thinks what I do is neat. And I started buying loose Migos again. So it was probably about a year and a half that I didn't collect something, that would be considered kind of, off the beaten path. And that year and a half sucked because I think I was denying who I was. I was trying to be more, I guess, commercially viable, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it didn't work.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that that I'm happy about for myself, and I can stand outside of myself to kind of notice it.
Yeah.
Is if it's something that's new that's coming out that I'm really keen for, like I'm not so cynical about the life that we had and the things that we loved, to not recognize, if it's good, whatever's coming, if it's good, regardless of whether I dig the property or whatever, if it's done well and I dig it, I'm going to dig it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be interested.
No apologies.
What it is, and it's all down to that. I think we're still hungry for all this stuff. Like if it's a genre thing, it's like, I'll taste this and see if this is something. And,
sure. It's just that I can't believe the unbelievable selection. I do feel like we just we're at a buffet that just keeps getting larger. Think of like.
Yeah.
You'd get one superhero movie every 2 years, and they'd usually be horrible. Now you get one superhero movie and 15 different TV shows a year. Like, there are superhero TV shows on TV that I'm like, that's a thing, and it's in its 4th season? I didn't even know
God. I was watching, the other night, one of the things I did find that I hadn't seen since it came out was the movie Death Trap.
Oh,
which was
Reeve and Michael Caine,
Christopher Reeve, Diane Cannon, and I hadn't seen it. But here's the thing: I saw that in the theater. I asked my mom and dad, who were already separated at that point, so I don't know how we all went out to the movies. I was 11, and I said that's the movie I want to see because it had Michael Caine in it. So I asked my brother to take me to The Swarm in 1978. I already had a crush on Michael Caine in 1978. That's how long I have loved that man. And then Death Trap, and because it had Superman in it, and I'm thinking, and I'm watching it going, well, first of all, there's, I don't want to give any spoilers, but there is a moment in the movie that shocked me to my core as a little kid, where I suddenly felt like, maybe I shouldn't be in this movie theater right now. I can't believe I just saw that. But that was how your little kid, brain works. But it was that there wasn't much out, and so that was a big deal to go see Death Trap because it had those two guys in it, like that. You know what I mean? It was there wasn't like you can go to each of those years and just have this sea of genre stuff on 3 networks and in movie theaters.
I would watch stuff with William Shatner in it or Martin Landau, and it wouldn't have anything to do with science fiction, but it's because they had, remember that? Like they just had something to do with science fiction, so you wanted to watch everything they did?
It's funny because you just posted something about motion picture, and a memory came to me about that very thing about Nimoy and Shatner. And this is true. This is going to sound romantic, but it's true. I remember watching, because Star Trek was on Saturday and Sunday afternoons, syndicated on the local station, Channel 9, in the Twin Cities. Usually on the same day, one of the days, maybe an hour or two later. Because, you didn't have a lot to do. You went outside and did stuff, or you looked at the listings and went, oh, this is going to be on in 2 hours. Let's go play catch and come back. And usually In Search Of was on the same station one of the 2 days. And I remember always watching that show, and when Nimoy would show up, I would get this sort of melancholy. I sort of had this melancholy, this sort of sadness. And it was one of the first times as a child that my brain could process that the thing I just watched him in 2 hours ago, the show that I love so much, the dynamic of Spock and Kirk and McCoy and those adventures and that thing is done. It's over. It's a thing that happened a long time ago, before I was born or whatever.
Yeah.
We will never see those characters together again. And so when I saw him in Search Of, with his shaggier hair and big frickin' sideboards and on the side of his head and everything, I would look at him and think, oh, I wish he could play Spock. Like, if he just, it would kind of make me wistful that thing is done. He's never going to be that guy again. And I wish he would do something else. Isn't that funny that would, you'd have that sort of reaction even back then, that this stuff meant so much to us?
Yeah, I can honestly, I'm trying to think of the thing that I absolutely agree with you, and I'm trying to think of the thing where I had that realization as a kid, and I don't think it's going to come, but yeah, you see an actor in another thing and you go, oh yeah, they just have to go do things after. And I think it may have been Shatner in those Loblaws commercials when I was a kid.
Oh, see, that would have shocked me to my shoes, because we saw him in the butter commercials, Promise Butter and stuff like that. But if I saw a local
well, he was always on the Joyce Davison show, which was this like local, terribly a shot on video interview show that would only have celebrities that were slumming in Toronto. And I think Shatner was on like 2 or 3 times. Like, he was pretty predominant in Canada. Like, it's like he came back to catch whatever dollars he could, and it was sort of humbling, I think, to see.
Well, I think it was coupled with that too. Is that I would see Nimoy in Search Of and think, can he get an acting job, or has he given up, or something? Like, why is he hosting this thing? Why doesn't that man have his own show?
Yeah.
Give that man his own show. And I thought, well, maybe this is not going to be good for these people. And then the next thing would have been to see like James Doohan in Jason of Star Command or things like that, and it was like, oh, well, at least they're working or whatever. Little do we know we are there at the movie. Okay, here's one for you. Name a movie or a show, and it doesn't have to just be one. You can think of several or whatever. And I'm sure you have so many answers for this. Name a movie or show that's instant comfort food. In other words, your day's not going well. It's been a shitty week, kind of in the doldrums. Something you can pop on that is immediately going to take you away and sort of be a Band-Aid for.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I have so many.
I figured.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole point of this, is escapism, and
Caligula is one. Caligula is
absolutely Caligula.
Okay.
I spit on your grave. No. Yeah, that's a really good one. The things that I go to a lot would be Planet of the Apes movies, episodes of Kung Fu, UFO, Jerry Anderson.
By the way, both of those were on my mental list.
Okay.
For you. I swear.
Yeah.
Both of those were on
I'm not exactly a riddle here.
No, not like a lot of stuff, but I know how much you love that stuff.
Episodes of Jerry Anderson's UFO, SCTV would be a huge one for me.
Hmm.
And then really schlocky movies like really schlocky movies. Assignment Terror, Santa Claus Conquers the Martian, Plan 9. I love Plan 9 very much.
Hmm.
Stuff like that, like where you know the beats to it,
Yeah.
and you're kind of in love with how it's going. Another one I really love is a film called J-Men Forever, which is by the Firesign Theater, where they've dubbed over and intertwined all these 1940s serials to make a story about rock and roll and weed invading the USA in the 40s. And it's brilliant. And in college, I used to put it on to fall asleep to, and I would just doze right off because I knew every
Oh,
line.
no.
And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so those would be my main go-tos. That is a great question. What are yours?
Again, it couldn't be one thing, but it sort of occurred to me, sort of a part two of the answer I gave a few minutes ago about everything sort of being connected. There are times where I just, and I'm in between gigs right now. I'm waiting to hear about the next voiceover session, and is it going to be this, and it's a new year, and what's going on. And so you want to stay distracted, and there's a plethora of stuff that I have to watch, but there are times where it's really difficult to go like, well, that's going to remind me of this, and then that's going to get me upset because it's going to. And then there's those go-to things that I don't have to think. It's like putting an album on, just putting music on. Like I don't have to think about it. Just put it on, and it's gonna take me somewhere else. And just Hard Day's Night.
Oh yeah.
Beatles movie Hard Day's. Just like, just and with that, I would say as a double feature almost, the Ruddles, the All You Need Is Cash, the Eric.
Okay, I showed that to my children last night, a bit of that, and then I had to explain to them sometimes a documentary parody is so close to the original, you're not sure what you're watching, and I find that with the Ruddles, like it's not hilarious, it's just sort of quirky, and the music's actually not bad, and we were kind of. I was trying to explain it to my kids, and I felt like I was, an alien to them. Like they just did not understand any of this, and I didn't. I don't think I made a great impression with the Ruddles with them. That's really funny you mentioned them.
It's a really extraordinary sort of animal because it's not a parody in the way that Walk Hard, the Dewey blah blah story, or Spinal, whatever, because that's sort of
it's a spoof. Yeah.
It's spoofing genres. This is very, very specific, and when you think about the access that Idol had, which was at the time he was became good friends with George Harrison. What became the Beatles anthology that aired in '95 originally was called The Long and Winding Road. And even in the '70s, this major Beatles documentary was being worked on, and so Harrison gave Idol access to rough cuts of The Long and Winding Road. So that's why when there are bits in the rules that match newsreel footage and interview stuff note for note that are so accurate that it's spooky, but it plays much, much better if you know the ins and outs of the Beatle story. So it's incredible that he even got to do that. Lorne Michaels like come and do it and everything, because it is so specific. And then of course there's bits that just go incredibly broad. But you have to know that if you've got the Lennon character, Lennon and Yoko in reality, it's the Lennon character, Ron Nasty, and his wife, Chastity, is dressed like Hitler.
Yeah.
It's incredibly broad, slapstick kind of thing that he takes it to. So it's interesting to hear that, because I always felt with that, you have to have a pretty good understanding of who the Beatles were or what they sort of did to kind of get the...
Like I had shown my kids two things that night, the Schmengies and the Ruddles. And it was like neither of those things stuck. They didn't get the Schmengies at all. And Yeah, it was
Well,
it was a
part of it
bad
too
segue altogether.
well, I think part of it too is that it's so real. It's played so real, very much like
Yeah.
Spinal Tap too. It's
Well,
played
that
so
is
real.
both those
That,
things, especially SCTV. They would take parody
oh,
to the point where you thought you were watching something on television. And the
it was
Schmangies was a
uncomfortable.
parody of a local Edmonton polka show.
Yeah,
And that, they did such a good job with it. It could be a local Edmonton polka show, and that's a credit to them, but it's also something that future generations will look at and go, I don't get the context of this thing.
yeah. It's they would do it so well that it kind of made you squirm. SCTV with a lot of the stuff that they did, but that SCTV is a great one. I would say, along with Ruddles, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, just as a thing that from beginning to end, still just the idiocy and the absurdity, complete silliness of it, can certainly take me away. I'll tell you one that's been doing it lately is over the last few years is The Nice Guys, the movie The Nice Guys with Ryan Gosling.
I finally got my wife to sit down and watch that with me and admit it's a great film.
Oh, look at that! That's perfect. That's great. What a great look at that. Strange World, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, I freaking absolutely adore that movie, and it's one of those things I can just come into, pop on the scene. Hail Caesar, one of the Coens from a few Coen brothers ago, is one of those weird movies too that just if I'm flipping around and it's on, it just sort of.
I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it very much.
Yeah, it sort of grows on you. But basically, Hard Day's Night, Holy Grail, Nice Guys, things that are sort of instant kind of band-aids are these things that the producers, the Mel Brooks movie, the producers, because it's just so completely insane and ridiculous. Stuff like that is would be the go-to, like in case of emergency, break glass and grab this thing kind of thing. Those are very comforting to me. And then probably The Empire Strikes Back. Just because
I get that.
Vivid, and I'm still trying to.
Here's one for you. What is the one thing you dig to this day where you feel like you are betraying every bit of fan integrity that you have?
Oh my God!
I'll give you mine.
Oh yeah, give me yours because that's.
And this is controversial opinion. Controversial opinion.
Give me yours.
I'm just alerting people. I liked the Catwoman movie.
Okay.
I like the Catwoman movie, and I saw the Joker movie. Both of them, by the way, feature the same actress playing essentially the same role. The actress, I think her name is Frances Conroy. She plays the Joker's mother, and she plays like Catwoman's Basil Exposition in Catwoman. And I think it's kind of funny that she's in both films.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she plays the cat lady in Catwoman that explains to Catwoman why she has ridiculous powers. I will probably never watch Joker again. I thought it was a fine movie.
Yep.
I have no problems with it, but I can never see myself going, I want to watch that again. I've seen Catwoman like 10 times.
Have you really?
Oh, I think it's great. I mean, it's horrible, but it's just so wonderfully horrible. Like, it's perfect in its awfulness. And that just may speak more about me liking a train wreck. But, I
think that is the definition of liking a train wreck right there. As you just said, it's horrible, but it's so horrible. Like,
it's like so the perfect storm of bad. And
I saw it. I remember seeing it on HBO once, and thinking it was really bad.
Oh, but it also stinks.
But also not thinking it was, I don't know. I don't remember just going, oh my God, like I thought this is a bad idea, but not like thinking it was horrific. But maybe I need to see it again. But
it's bad.
So that would be. So is that something you pop on from time to time?
If it's on it, like I don't own a copy, I'm not crazy, but if it is on like the on-demand system, I have popped it on. I have done that to annoy my kids. I'm a bit of a fan of Catwoman.
I don't know if I have. I got two I think that might work, and they're oddly connected. One, since the HBO Watchmen series has aired, I have had to sort of go. Excuse me, just a second. More times than I care to talk about, where people have said, "Yeah, this is how you do it." Fuck that movie. Where I have to go. Excuse me, just a minute. When's the last time you saw the movie? And defend the Watchmen movie again. And I've loved it since it came out. Again, it is not perfect. There are things, of course. But as a thing that exists, I will always defend it. And I think
We share that.
I think it is, say what you want. People, love or hate Zack Snyder and different things he's done, whatever. He was on a roll there for a while. And he did what I think is virtually the impossible. He managed to make a coherent film of something that the world thought was unfilmable, and every studio tried to do but couldn't. And he did it as a hard R with a not A-list cast. It could have been done, in under 2 hours with bigger names and PG-13, and it probably would have gotten more acclaim and made 3 times the money. But he chose to stick to his gun. So I'll always defend that. The other one that I think, and you may be with me on this, but I think is like, I look at it and I go, what's the big deal? Why is everyone so heavy about this movie? Is The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, now, yeah, I kind of dig it too. I mean, it's absolutely a Hollywoodization of a very in-depth and brilliant comic by Alan Moore.
Yes.
But I like it on its own for what it is.
If you, and that's one of the things that maybe we can discuss right now without going into great detail about certain things. But we're in this world now that it is sort of the loudest voices are the people that they apparently love this stuff, but they love it so much they hate it. And as soon as it hits, whether it's a product, a toy, a movie, whatever, they got to rip it to shreds. I don't know what the point is of spending all that time doing it. But there are certain things, like the Irishman thing. Now here's the thing. That is one of the best things I saw all year. I love Scorsese. I think it's a brilliant film. I think everyone in it is fantastic. I didn't mind the length in the least. I could have done double the time, and I think it's a gorgeous piece of movie making. I've watched it 3 times. The thing everybody wants to jump on is the de-aging CGI. So much so that some video came out last week that was like, look, I fixed it and made it even better with my home CGI de-aging kit, better than they could in their $300 million movie. Well, the thing is, we know that stuff and we notice stuff like that because we know stuff like that. Like, my mom would watch The Irishman and she wouldn't be sitting there going, what's wrong with his face? Why does he look so young there and he's not? She would just be immersed in the thing. If, the Leia being in Rise of Skywalker, my friend went with his girlfriend, and the first thing the girlfriend said was, oh, so she filmed this before she died. They managed to get, her scene shot. She had no idea what the history was. It just works. So we tend to know this stuff and get really hung up, or I think, geeks do or nerds do or whatever. And if you came into League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and had no idea what the book was, no idea who Alan Moore was, and just wanted some escapism for a Saturday night or something with monsters and weirdness and everything, I think it's a fine romp. It is not the book, but it does the job. It's fine. I don't think it's this disastrous, steaming pile of shit that everybody seems to think it is. I think there's much worse stuff out there. So that might be a geek cred thing, maybe. I don't know. That make sense?
It does. It totally does.
All right.
Yeah.
Here's something that's slightly left of center.
Okay.
Name a song that conjures up like an instant sort of time in your life, like something that if you heard it, you're instantly. I'm in the mall. I'm 9 years old. Oh my God, that's the song.
Okay, I got that easy. I got a million of those, but the one that will always make me laugh, because I swear to God I've never heard it since, is there was a song by Lisa and the Cult Jam, Head to Toe.
Sure.
And I had a job in a kitchen. That was like one of my first food preparation jobs in high school, probably like 86 or whenever that song was out, and they insisted on listening to top 40. I don't know why. I think because the other two of the people in the kitchen wanted to listen to country, which 80s country would have been that real,
Right.
So
Right.
the boss just settled, and we listened to AM 640 or whatever it was, and it was top 40, and I heard that song every hour on the hour for a summer. And it'll just constantly remind me of whatever the hell I was doing with knives, like I was always cutting up stuff. And yeah, I don't like the song, but it just constantly reminds me of that drudgery for $4 an hour at Cafe Vienna was the name of the restaurant I worked at.
You haven't heard it since, but if that song ever came on, you would just
instantly, yeah, because one of my jobs was to make the shavings for cakes, that like chocolate shavings. And the way you would do that would be to take a large piece of refrigerated chocolate and the back of a knife. So you'd have to put the blade in your palm, and you would scrape back and forth until you got these nice little shavings. And you would do that for like an hour. And, that would cut my hand open. By the end of the session. I didn't get blood into anyone's cake or anything, but
I was going to say, add flavor.
My DNA. That was, so that song, I think I've heard it like once in the last 30 years. Yeah, but I can still tell you all the lyrics to that song, and yeah, I'm not a fan. But yeah, that song is completely my crummy summer of working in that restaurant.
Well,
you're
probably like me, where there could be a dozen or more tunes that could come on and take you immediately to, and I say that, I mean every time, like not just you hear it once and and suddenly that thought, I remember that summer.
Yeah.
It's like every single time you're the first. I think it's all connected to that same kind of memory with that stuff. I think if you have that affinity to hear a couple of notes and go, summer of '87, I was at the mall and I did whatever, that you tend to catalog this stuff, or I think this all is sort of connected. Again, I think it's a lot of the same sort of illness. I got a couple more, but I know we got to sort of wrap this up.
Yeah, my daughter is waiting at the door to print her project, so we should just do one more each and call it a day.
All right.
Okay. What is the one genre thing from our reflective childhood that you hate with a passion? That other people like and love, that you just dislike immensely.
Oh my God! Wow, that I hate?
Well, or just do not care for. Like, no, thank you.
Oh man! Wow, that's really tough. That's really tough.
Yeah, hate maybe if too strong a word, but just something that other people really dig, and you just go, I've never been into that, I don't like it.
Well, there are things that I think of that, you and I have this conversation a lot too about the way that people are sort of glomming onto things from childhood, and you can poke pins in anything. But a lot of it is like, well, that's the cartoon I grew up on, and that's the whatever.
Yeah.
So, but in our case, we're not going to love every cartoon we grew up on. I mean,
no, of course not.
So let's just say there are certain things that are sort of in my lifetime-ish, or a year or two beyond, that have a following that is hard for me to reconcile in a way. I'm not against it. I got no issue with it. I don't think it's garbage. But the devotion I find extraordinary, and that is something like Masters of the Universe, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe comes to mind.
I always equate that to our reflective age, because we're just sort of on the tail end of that,
I had a couple of the figures. I had like the first 4 figures, and I was digging it.
Me too.
And I watched the cartoon, and
the cartoon ended it for me. It was like, oh dear.
Yeah, and we sort of grew up and whatever, and so. But I mean, it has become. I mean, it is more popular now than it ever was. I think than it was when it was alive, with the devotion and the the releases and the layers that have come out of this thing are extraordinary to me. That I just wouldn't have pegged it, because to me it was just like a silly, it has characters called Stinky Face or whatever, like a
Ram Man.
Ram head, and I'm like, really?
Let's get his backstory. Yeah, no.
So I don't hate it, and I don't dislike anything. I just kind of go, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's just an age thing, because there's plenty of stuff that came out at the same time or a little bit later that I dig. And the other one I would sort of point out, you and I talked about this last show, was the Dark Crystal. I don't know why this particular thing has such.
Yeah.
It's not denigrating it. I just don't get how it's caught on the way it has. Okay, so this one, you can answer either one of these. You pick. I'll give you two more. You pick which one you want to answer.
Sure.
I know which one I'd rather hear. But give me one, if you had a list of 10 desert island toys.
Oh, my
or
stars.
things you saved from the fire, let's say. Family, pets, everybody's safe, done. But you had to grab. What would one of them be? Or your first pop culture crush.
I think you want the desert island list, right? Or do you want the pop culture crush?
Oddly enough, I kind of wanted the pop culture crush one, but I'll take whatever you want to do.
The pop culture crush is a little weird.
That's why I want it. If it's like Tulsa Sultana, whatever. It wasn't Tura Satana.
I wasn't that cool a kid.
Okay. B. Arthur? Was it Maud?
It was B. Arthur. It was actually it was Mrs. Naugatuck.
I thought you were going to say Beasley from Family Affair. That would have been weird.
I think the first kind of realization I liked girls was cartoon women. I think they're safer and more for a kid's head. They're easier to relate to than grown women in programs and that sort of thing. So I can remember really liking Alexandria Cabot from Josie and the Pussycats, who's like the villain. And
wow.
She's kind of a rude jerk, and this is really bad. I can honestly remember she had that skunk streak in her hair. And I can honestly remember in college, if a girl had that, I'd flirt heavily with her without any sort of what am I doing? What?
God!
And I had this sort of other subconscious thing of liking scowly women, and it was really deep in there. It's one of those things where you're not particularly conscious of it all. And I think it kind of dawned on me in my 20s. It's what am I doing? With some of my choices of women and where it was leading me. And it was sort of oh my God, is this a little crush I have on mean-spirited women with skunk streak? It's a very small fetish. Our convention is tiny, but
that's so specific. That's better. That's a better answer than I could have hoped.
Oh yeah, it's a really weird thing, and I mean, in terms of real women, I would have to say, probably Maya from Space 1999, or I think it's Nicole Davidoff from Jason of Star Command. They're very attractive women. But and possibly Leela from Doctor Who. But yeah, that I would have to say that I'm talking 4 years old.
Well, it's funny because one of mine, I mean, I have a couple, but one of them would be, and I don't know if this is exactly the first one, but it very well might be, would have been the Princess Aura from the Filmation Flash Gordon cartoon.
Oh, yeah, okay, me too, but is insanely well drawn.
Oh my God! And it's like, and as a kid, I'm like, this is almost like a movie. Like,
Well,
I've
I've told you this story. I'm sure I've told it on this, but like I was showing that to Dean once when he was probably Dean is my son audience, when he was probably like 4 or 5 because it came out on DVD at that time, and he was digging it because he liked Filmation, and my wife came by, and Aura was on the screen, and she said, "What the hell's that?" Meaning, like that is an extremely sexy character for a cartoon, and she wasn't wrong.
Oh, it's incredible! It's absolutely incredible. And the other thing is, around the same time would have been Princess Ardala from Buck Rogers, Pamela Hensley. I had a mega crush on her. And then, of course, a year later, I get Ornella Muti as Aura, same character as the cartoon in the movie, and it was like a trifecta, all evil women.
Yeah,
Isn't that strange? Isn't that odd that there was?
Yeah, I don't know what it is about. It never surprised me that when I was about 14 or 15, I found a French photography magazine with clothed pictures of Betty Page in it, and I bought it. I couldn't read, my reading of French was terrible, but I just remember going like, this is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life, and I need to own this magazine. And I still have, pictures of Betty Page all over my house, and if I could ever get my brain to accept a tattoo, which will never happen, that would probably most likely be the subject. But I think it's just, yeah.
And that's race too, but I think we're, especially speaking selfishly, I might have a lot of stuff to be thinking about when we get off the phone here, because here are 3 women that I had crushes on as a kid, and they're all the baddies. They're all.
Maybe you and I both need to have a bad girl club.
That might explain a lot of what's gone wrong in the multitude of relationships in my life and the things that I've been looking for, because maybe I just, maybe I've been looking in the wrong places, because,
maybe I should stop writing Fairuza Balk.
Right, exactly. Put the pen down. Well, that to me is as good a place as any to wrap up the possibly semi-annual, annual Ask Me Anything.
Ask Me Anything. I like that. That's what we're going to call it. So, wonderful. This is a great episode. Let's do more of this. This has been a wonderful therapy session for me.
Yeah, man. Let us know what you think, everybody. We always love feedback. We'll do standalone topics again, very soon. But we thought we'd just throw this out there and see what the response would be. Have some fun with it.
Sounds really good. Well, I have to run so my daughter can print off her science project. But I'd like to thank Jason and thank everybody, and Happy New Year. And we're going to be on track to do a new show every month, possibly more.
Thanks, everybody. Happy New Year.
Take care. All right. I'm going to go.
All right. Get out of here.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.